to get home. They need to get
Why
sacked.
is that? How do you feel about that? A lot of people, they try to say, oh, well, they're getting a lot of pressures and stuff. What's going on with Nick Bosa? He's not paid to get pressures. I know that people love to give him that excuse. I think this was the first time post game that people have really kind of put the pressure on Nick Bosa. I think they're starting to be like, all right, we gave you a lot of grace. You weren't here for training camp. Everyone knows you're in phenomenal shape, but there seems to be a difference in football shape and normal shape. Do you criticize more the 49ers organization for not getting his extension done sooner? Do you criticize him for not showing up? I mean, people went hard in the paint for Debo, and he at least was here when he was working on his contract extension. It's pretty disappointing that he all of a sudden is unable to. He has 2.5 sacks in the entire season so far, which is crazy. And I know people say, oh, he's double teamed all this. TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, all those guys are getting, like, they're number one in the league and they are getting it too. We've just faced Danielle Hunter. The 49ers double teamed him and he's been able to make an impact on not only the 49ers offense, but on other offenses across the league. So why do you think that's happening? And do you think it's fair? Do you think Nick Bosa should start having to answer questions for that?
I think so. I know a lot of people are like trying to defend him with, oh, he had 6 pressures. I don't care about pressures unless they're making an impact in the sense of they're causing a bad throw or they're causing a turnover. If they're not doing that, the pressure doesn't matter. Like, I don't give a fuck about that shit. Like, think about it. The amount of pressures that we got on Kirk Cousins, did any of them impact any of his throws? Not really. He was dicing us up on third downs. Like, you could get pressure. That's cool. I just completed a 15-yard pass in your face. Like that. That's literally how I see him. Like
Can
to me,
I
it.
can I side note you really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why why this is back to Wilks. Why did Kirk Cousins look like he was calling the defense? Why in like he looked like he knew exactly where to throw the ball the second it was snapped every single time. I know that a lot of people have talked about that the 49ers don't do a lot of disguises, meaning that they show like what they show pre-snap is normally what they're going to be in post-snap. Is there something on film do you hypothesize that has been figured out? Because Kirk Cousins literally didn't look uncomfortable once. Even when he was getting pressured, he was able to stand in there and knew exactly where to throw the ball in a moment's notice. It was extremely impressive. I mean, Kirk Cousins was dicing them up, but it seems like potentially this could be a pattern for Steve Wilks and the way that he's calling the defense, which would be not good moving forward.
I think
Did
it's
you
more
notice that?
on. Yeah, I think it's more on what they're showing and not disguising anything. I mean, when you have quarterbacks like Kirk, I know he has the bad rep. He's a good quarterback. Like, he's really good. He's really smart. He knows what he wants to do with the ball. He understands his offense. He understands that he doesn't have Justin Jefferson. He understands that. He knows got to get the ball out quick. If you're showing him what you're doing, he's gonna pick it apart. Um, and I think a lot of teams, a lot of teams are doing, are gonna start doing, is putting Fred Warner in a predicament. You
Yeah,
put him
he's
on the
been like
slot. If you put Fred on the slot and you make him go out there and cover, it doesn't allow Fred to be Fred roaming around. And I think that becomes on the scheme. You got to adjust.
yeah.
Steve Wilks, it's concerning. It's very concerning. I think him and the defense aren't on the same page. I think he has to go talk to Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, talk to Hufanga, see what they're all seeing.
Did
Um,
you hear Nick Bosa is like kind of speaking of people kind of throwing each other under the bus, which is so concerning. They've only lost 2 games, and we're already talking about like Kyle Shanahan kind of throwing Wilks. After the game, when asked about all the blitzes that were happening, Nick Bosa kind of talked about how it takes away his ability to make an impact. Now, Bosa also did take his own blame and said like he's not being the player that he is paid to be and wants to be. But he also did kind of say that he's not being put in a position to maximize his skill set as well with the new scheme call. I thought that was kind of insane that he said that in a press conference. Like these aren't conversations that they're having, in the meeting room. He was in the media saying that.
Air it out. I love it. Air it all out.
I like
I
the
don't,
drama, but it's kind of like what is happening to this team that we kind of always thought was so together. They're kind of
I
they're,
think I
they're
think it's
showing
more
some
so.
cracks.
I think it's more so frustration. This team has high expectations for themselves. They're not doing what they're expecting from themselves. When you start doing that, you start looking at yourself, start looking at other people, you start pointing fingers. I think Fred Warner's going to get this defense back on the right track this week. Playing a really good passing defense, offensive line that isn't the greatest, isn't great, could give up pressures and stuff like that, sacks. So it all just depends on Steve Wilks. I think you got to adjust. I think you got to, if you see an offensive line is in max protection, you can't send 4. You got to drop 8. Check to it. Go fly, fly, fly. You know they're passing. You got to drop out of it. You got to go drop 8. Um, so for me, it's one of those ones where I think it's I think it's more so on Steve Wilks and then the team. But also when you have Drake Jackson on the field, you ain't gonna get no pressure. I'm gonna slide my entire offensive line one way. I'm gonna leave Drake Jackson on the island by himself. Drake Jackson is a player that he cannot play right now.
Randy Gregory has looked good. He didn't get any sacks last game, but he's gotten some pressures in his first game. He performed really well, so it'll be interesting to see how they're able to scheme up against this Bengals offense. I'm kind of nervous about our secondary against Chase and stuff. So.
Absolutely. And if the 49ers want to fix some of the situation that's going on, the first thing I would tell if I was a defensive quality control coach, hey Steve, you cannot play Drake Jackson. He's a liability. He ain't doing shit
Really?
in the pass. He ain't doing shit in pass pro.
Okay.
He is terrible in the run game. Like right now, he is a shell of himself. I said this from the week 1. Everyone's like, "Oh, 3 sacks. We have an edge rusher." I was like, and I rewatched the game. I said, these are not what you want to celebrate, guys. Like, and I said that and I got killed for it. Drake Jackson, the last 3 weeks has been terrible, like absolutely terrible. Randy Gregory should be getting almost all snaps outside of opposite of Nick Bosa. Drake Jackson should not be getting snaps. Now you have to think about who do you add into the rotation because Drake Jackson is not any help. Do you have Robert Beal Jr.? Do you go trade for someone? But right now, Drake Jackson is very bad to watch. I'm very concerned for the defensive line because if Drake Jackson on the field, you're not getting pressure. You're not going to get sacks because you could slide everything and it's very easy to protect.
That's a great tip. I hope Steve Wilks is listening because he needs all the tips he can get right now.